So today we will continue with due care and due diligence. Okay, so due care and due diligence. Any idea what is due care and due diligence? Okay, due care means due diligence means to investigate. Like you are buying a new product. So if you need to buy a new computer, what you do in general? You do market research, you do reviews, you go to other different stores, and also you take the quotations from them. Those are research kind of thing before you purchase. So those all of these things are comes under the due diligence in company. Whenever you are buying any product, any service from a vendor, what you do, you check the vendors whether they are good, you check the product whether these products are meeting your requirements. So this all are comes within the due diligence part. Now what is due care? To implement, like you investigate about a learning management system, you understand the requirements from your company, now you implemented that is due care. So difference between due care and due diligence, one is investigation, another is to complete the thing. So now the thing is, if you're old, your LMS contents are getting old, you need to implement, you need to update those content. Now what you need to do, you need to first investigate, that is due diligence. Now you need to update means due care. So this is the main difference. Remember this concept, in exam you will get one question from due diligence and due care. Okay. Prudent rule. Prudent person rule means what a reasonable person would do in same scenario. Okay, that is called prudent person rule. Maybe you get a question, what is the prudent person rule? They will give you some example. Just remember what a reasonable person would do in a same scenario. Example is, it's not just security, it's about showing you cared enough to protect. So like if you need to set a priority between your organization asset and your employees, whom you need to protect first? It's the employee, the people come first, because people cannot be replaced, machine can be replaced. So if in your organization, if there is a fire event and you need to protect your asset, you need to prioritize whom you need to protect first. So that means what a reasonable person would do, definitely you will find your human being first and you need to protect them first. Apart from that, if you get time, then you will manage to get the computers out from your building, but first human being. So that is thing what a reasonable person do in same scenario. So that is called prudent person rule. Okay. Due diligence and due care, I hope you understand. And let's go to, okay, for example of due diligence and due care, you need to research vendors, evaluate guard companies for the security guards, and due care, hire guards, post them an access point. Remember, one is investigation, another is implementation. Okay, so import export regulation, there are certain goods. Goods means some kind of goods which are regularized by import export law. One of them is encryption. So if you are exporting or importing any encryption technology, that comes under the export law. Just remember this. And we will continue a little bit. I'll go deep into this while we're going to solve the questions. Okay. This is called Wassenaar arrangements, and what you need to understand from Wassenaar arrangements is category 5 part 1, category 5 part 2. Just remember these things. Wassenaar arrangement deals with the product which are subjected to import and export. So there are certain countries, I think now 107 countries probably, they signed into an agreement that any export or import control laws, they will be actively part on it, and they will maintain this Wassenaar arrangement. Under this Wassenaar arrangements, India is also one part of the Wassenaar arrangements. So we need to focus only category 5. I think it's at 7 or 6 category probably. We need to understand category 5 part 1, which deals with any telecommunication related product encryption kind of thing, and category 5 part 2 deals with information security. We need to understand these two things. Category 5 part 1, remember this, part 1 is telecommunication, part 2 is information security, and this is crucial for the exam. They're going to ask you under Wassenaar arrangements what are the things you comes under the article 5 part 1 or maybe part 2. So the main goal is to prevent misuse by terrorist or hostile nations. Sometimes what happen, if you have a technology that could lead us some scientific improvement, or it can be used in terrorist activity like the atomic bomb. The atomic energy we can use for the generation of power, same atomic energy can be used to make an atomic bomb. So technology has dual side, dual angle. To protect it from terrorism or hostile situation, Wassenaar arrangement came into force, and all the country they strictly follow this Wassenaar arrangements. So sometime they may ask in the questions, you are going abroad in some country for your company's work, what are the things you need to take care of? Maybe they will give you some example. You need to understand which is most important, and if you see anything export control law, select that, because it's very important from any other options. Okay. Another thing, what is transborder data flow? Transborder data flow means you are sending your data, sending your company's data, subject data or company's data to any other country. So that is called transborder, and GDPR regularize these things. Any data protection law regularize these things. Transfer of personal data to third countries or international organizations comes under article 45 to 50. So GDPR they regularize these things. Also that means you under GDPR, that means you have certain mechanism of safeguard to protect the data, protect the right of data subject. Then only you can transmit your data to other countries. Like GDPR, the European country, they announced that Japan has the adequate security, so you can freely transfer data between Japan and Europe. But GDPR said that India or maybe some other country, China, they don't have sufficient safeguard for the data subject right, so you cannot freely transfer data within those countries. So you need to have certain safeguards. What are the safeguards you need to have? GDPR also mentioned those things, which is binding corporate rule and standard contractual clause. First thing is adequate decision. That means Japan example, European Union and Japan example I give, that is called adequacy decision. That means these are implied. You can easily send data without any permission. Now next you need some safeguard, which is called standard contractual clause and binding corporate rules. What are those? Those are, if a company wants to send data, they need to give implied permission. They have a form, they need to fill and sign those form. That form impliedly gives data subject right, or data subject give the safeguard to protect their data or to enforce their rights. Okay, this is the number one thing. That means your company is sending data to India, the Indian company will give this form to this European company that okay, we will protect your data and your data subject has the safeguard. They can enforce the right as the same way as the data process in Europe. And what is binding corporate rules? Binding corporate rules is something that Google, they have a multiple branch. One is in Europe, one is in India. So Google will transfer this data to Google Europe to Google India. Now what they need? They are not sending data to any third party. They are sending the data within their companies. So that time they will use binding corporate rules. Just remember, company, same company, binding corporate rules, different company, SCC, standard contractual clause, and apart from this, adequacy decision. These three things you need to remember. Okay. Data localization is a thing. We said data localization means data localization requirement, but GDPR explicitly has not mentioned about data localization. But India's DPDP Act, they specifically mentioned about data localization. India said any data you are processing outside of India, they must have one copy need to be remain within India. That is a data localization requirement. But GDPR has not mentioned anything. They said you can process within this three solution I told you earlier. But for India, they have specifically data. Some other data protection law could have data localization requirement. So that is the reason you see, I think already you see, whenever you are setting up any cloud, maybe Azure or AWS, you see there is the option to select the region. That is for the data localization requirement. That means if you are storing data in any country, you cannot, you have to select a proper country cloud and then you need to select data, save your data. Okay. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property means any trademark, copyright, patent, those comes intellectual. From intellectual means from where? From brain. Anything creative, that is called intellectual. That means a formula, intellectual property. You know about the difference between copyright, trademark and patent? Okay, so the thing is, the best way to identify is, let me show you the best way to identify is, any logo comes under the trademark, and the best way to understand is this TM. TM means trademark. They applied for the trademark, but the trademark has not been registered. That is called TM. Now, if we are going to see Microsoft Windows, yes, that no, not C. I think it should not be in C. One will be on. This is the logo. Now, check. They have a R here, Microsoft, beside the Microsoft R. That means Microsoft name is registered. But Windows, this name is also registered. But Windows logo is a TM. That means it's not registered, but they applied for. Okay, so sometimes they may ask a question by giving you an image. Tell me whether this logo is registered or not. You can easily identify with these things. Now the thing is, since it is not registered, why they use TM? This is the question, common question. The thing is, they want to show their opponents, their competitors, that we already applied for the trademarks. Stop doing it by yourself. Do not submit the same thing for the trademark. They want to notify this to their competitor. So that is the reason they use this. But if you see in the Microsoft Windows XP logo, I think that is comes under the TM, not the R. Okay. So we need to protect the intellectual property. Intellectual property comes under the data protection also. And another thing I need to tell you, when you go to any website, maybe this website, same website we visited earlier, or maybe the Microsoft website is also okay, fine, no problem. If you go the bottom of the website, see Microsoft 2025, that means it's copyright, their contents are copyright. So whenever it is comes under the literature kind of content, it comes under the copyright. Any image comes under the trademark, and patent means any invention, scientific invention. Tesla invented their battery, comes under the patent. You invented a scientific formulation, that comes under the patent. So patents is innovation, trademark is logo, and copyright is literature content. Just remember these things. Maybe they will confuse you here. Okay. Trade secret. Trade secret means confidential business processes or formulas. Some confidential financial information, balance sheet, your business ideas, those are all comes under the trade secret. Trade secret is an umbrella. Under umbrella, we could have patent, trademark, copyright, or some other thing also. Okay. License. License means legal permission to use someone else intellectual property, or if you have a license to use their goods or use their service, it's called license. License is pretty much simple. So what we have two types of license: perpetual license, that means lifetime uses. So we sometime when we get some product, have you heard of this perpetual license? Okay, so let me show you what is perpetual license. If you want to buy any product, some product they have option. Yes, sometime what you need to, you are going to purchase their product for the entire lifetime, and from the next year onward you pay only the subscription fee or AMC fee. So this is the perpetual license, help desk perpetual. And this is recurring, that means you need to pay monthly or annually. See, the monthly and annually options are there. But if you click here, help desk perpetual, there is no monthly and yearly option. You need to pay one time, and rest of the thing you need to pay by AMC. That is called perpetual and recurring license. Okay, so end user agreement. End user agreement, whenever you are installing a software, they ask you to read the agreement, and you read and accept those agreement. Those are called LO or end user agreement. Those are the binding terms for you. You need to follow those, and you need to acknowledge those things. Creative Commons means free attribution based use. Sometimes what happen, if you want to upload any music, so that time YouTube ask, okay, this music is copyright protected, you cannot use this music. But if you use Creative Commons, then you can use this music free, but you need to give attribution. Let me show you how. Now you will say copyright free music, royalty free music. So these are the musics you can use in YouTube, but whenever you are going to download this music, they will say attribution required. That means you need to give them attribution regarding this is the author, credit goes to this person. So that is called Creative Commons. Sometimes they call it copyleft. We know the term copyright. Remember, this is another term, copyleft. Copyleft means no copy. You can freely use copyleft. Okay. Licensing, the software code is a license. We know this thing. Okay, espionage. Espionage means theft of trade secret. That means if any attacker attack the company and they steal any trade information, trade secret information, whether it's a copyright or patent, trademark, or anything related to business, that is called espionage. Cyber espionage, we heard this word a lot. WIPO is the one who intellectual property organization, World Intellectual Property Organization for technical assistance, and WTO, World Trade Organization, for legal business. Remember, they may ask you a question if you have any problem related to intellectual property, or you want to challenge any company in terms of intellectual property, whom you are going to approach and complain. That is the WIPO. So how you need to remember? See the word IP, intellectual property. Just remember these things. T means trade, IP means intellectual property. You need to remember, because lot of acronyms you are going to learn, it's difficult to remember all of them. Okay, cybercrime, pretty much everyone know, and you know as well, so I'm not going to deep what is cybercrime. Anything related to cyber, including unauthorized access, system disruption, data manipulation, comes under the cyber crime. Okay, cybercrime is not just hacker, it's any digital law violation. Any digital law violation comes under the cybercrime. If your organization have a policy that availability of server is a mandatory, and someone violate that, someone maybe did something by which your server got crashed, now your server is unavailable. That comes under cybercrime also, because it's against the law. That is the reason. Okay, data breach. Data breach means, remember, data breach means unauthorized access to sensitive data is data breach. But remember, data breach comes also anything affected CIA, confidentiality, integrity and availability, also a data breach. But main data breach means unauthorized access. If I send you a mail and by default, which you are not supposed to receive this mail, this is a data breach also. Even the mail content is encrypted, still it is data breach, because you are not authorized to access this mail. Okay, remember this thing. Okay, you need to know this law. Those are, I know, typical, but you need to remember this. FISMA, Federal Information Security Modernization Act. This is all related to information security of United States. Okay. NIPA, National Information Infrastructure Protection Act. CFA, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Need to remember from here FISMA and CFAA, these two. Okay. Common threat actor. What is threat actor? Threat actor means attacker. Whoever is attacking is a generic term for unauthorized actor. Hacker means whoever exploit the system. There could be often skilled or could be a script kiddie. Those are also considered as a hacker. But in script kiddie we have separate thing. Whoever use pre-built tools, that means whoever download common hacking tools from website, open source tool they use, and they use those tools to attack something. These are called script kiddies. They don't want to write code, or they don't want to build their own custom tool. They just use the freely available tool in the internet and use those for the attack. Those are the script kiddies. But hacker is sophisticated and they know how to attack. They build their own tool. So remember, you may be asked question regarding this. Sometimes they will confuse you like this way. You got a sophisticated attack. So remember this term sophisticated. Whenever you heard this term sophisticated, you need to remember, okay, they said sophisticated. That means it's not script kiddie. There's a solid attack is going on here. Insider threat means unauthorized user who misuse access. That means your employee could be an insider attack, because they know how the system works. They have authorized to use the system. So they could be most vulnerable for the organization. So that is the reason we need to implement zero trust policy. We don't trust anyone. We trust but verify. Every time we need to verify. Okay, we have active attacks. Active attacks means we are actively exploiting vulnerability directly by using Metasploit, by using any other tool. Those are called active attack. But sometimes we don't actively attack. We gather evidence, we gather information, reconnaissance. Those are called passive attacks. That means surveillance, info gathering. We just walk around the factory, we just walk around the building to check whether they have camera, whether how many security guards are there, they have is there any fence, is there any dog, those kind of thing. This is the surveillance kind of thing for information gathering. You will make plan after this how I can get into the building. That is called passive attacks. And zero day attack means attack vector. That means the way the attacker going to attack, that information is unavailable to anyone. So that means a new malware came into force and no antivirus has the signature. That is called zero day attack. Suddenly it exploit. Suddenly you know the vulnerability, but nobody knows this vulnerability and you never expose this to anyone. Suddenly you build a exploit and start exploited to everyone. And no antivirus has any clue because they don't have signature. So now the problem is they cannot defend you. So the best way in such situation, signature based antivirus will not work here. So only solution is anomaly based antivirus or anomaly based anti-malware, because they understand from the behavior. They don't understand from the signature. They understand from the behavior, from the TTP, how the attack is happening, what step they are going to perform. They correlated multiple steps together and comes into a decision. That is called triaging. And by the help of SIEM, we do this thing manually. But anomaly based scanner, they have inbuilt algorithm by which they started to understand, okay, the system started login failure, and one of the users was earlier logged in from India, now they are logged in from United States, and the time difference is 2 hours. It's not possible to go there. So lot of different factors they analyze, and based on they come to conclusion that the system is going to be attacked by someone. So zero day attack can be prevented by anomaly based detection system, and signature based system is more definitely less false positive result they will give because they have signature, but anomaly based detection they will have lot of false positive. Remember this. Okay. Doxxing. Doxxing means public release of sensitive information. You have a sensitive information and release it to public. Sometimes they will ask you a question out of revenge. Out of revenge, you have a very bad relationship with your manager, and out of revenge, you disclose some information of the company or maybe of the manager. So what thing you did? One of the option could be doxing. So remember, doxing means public release of sensitive data. Okay. Hacktivism means hacking for political activity, like anonymous do. They do political reason hacking. So disruption means denial of service, and destruction means delete, destroy asset. Terrorism, those are called destruction. But in ransomware attack, they disrupt the service. In denial of service, they disrupt the service. They don't want to destruct it. But whenever nation vector sponsor attacker like China attack India, China, Russia attack different countries, what they try to do, they destroy. Because you remember, the Iran has a atomic facility. Israel's one of the malware they entered into their system, and they destroy their centrifuges. So those are things are destruction. So this is one of the example. Okay. Why compliance matter? Compliance matter is because we need to have a law. The law regulate us. We need to follow that law. So that is the reason in every organization they have some regularization, regularized company, regularized partner kind of thing. Those laws regulate this industry. In data protection, data protection for GDPR, and maybe some other law, health related data is for HIPAA. Those are the regulations. So if we don't follow the laws, then definitely it's very disturbing solutions, disturbing situation, because people's won't follow any rules, guides. So law is a path, the guide which we all need to follow, every company need to follow. Okay, this law you need to know. So CFA, you don't need to know in depth, you just need to know for what purpose they use. Okay, so Privacy Act, it's related to privacy, common understand. Computer Security Act is not necessary. FISMA is necessary because anything federal related, agencies related, government contractor related comes under the FISMA. Economic Espionage Act means anything economic offense happen, that comes under the Economic Espionage Act. CFA, Computer Fraud and Authorized Act, this is the US's main cybercrime law, CFA AA. SOX prevent Sarbanes-Oxley law prevents financial fraud in public companies. That is the reason every US based company who deal with the financial product or financial services, they have to comply with the Sarbanes-Oxley law because it prevents financial fraud. Remember this. PCI DSS is related to credit card payment data, or credit card, debit card payment data related. GLBA means protect financial customer data. It's for Grammy Lychee Billy Act. So protects financial customer data. So a lot of things are confusing. SOX, GLBA is confusing, but you need to remember this is SOX for the companies, for public companies. Remember this SOX for not customer, it's for public companies. GLBA same thing, financial, but for the customer data. Okay, and HIPAA is healthcare related, anything related to health information, anything related to medical, it comes under the HIPAA. That means if you have a prescription, that is also comes under the HIPAA. You bought a medicine by using your credit card, that information comes under the HIPAA, because you bought the medicine from your credit card, and your credit card statement, it is also written that you buy this medicine from 1 mg or maybe Boots. So that comes under it. GDPR, these are data protection law for the Europe. UK has also data protection GDPR. Okay. Okay. We have penalties for non-compliance. Civil penalties generally fines, lawsuit. In India also we have any, if there is a civil penalty means not criminal kind of thing. So that is civil. And for the criminal penalties, generally imprisonment, loss of license, fines, those are comes under the criminal penalties. And for the civil penalties, we have fine. Whenever you heard this term governance, remember two things. One is your internal structure of the company and any external authority which governs you. So any external authority which governs, for example, if you are doing business in telecommunication in India, so who are the governing body? The governing body will be DOT, Department of Telecommunication, TRAI, Telecom Regulatory of India. Those are the governing body. But in your internal governance, we have 3-4 type of documents we need to follow, and it all start with policy. Policy is a very high level document. It defines, it guides you how our organization should go, like a risk management policy, information security policy, those kind of things. Then we are coming into standard. Standard means what things we need to follow. Policy will tell you that we need to follow ISO 27001, we need to follow GDPR, those are standard. ISO 27001 is standard. Now the standard will elaborate that what things, what SOP, what procedure we need to implement. Do we need password history policy? Do we need password expiration policy? Do we need password retention policy? Whatever the policy we need, that standard will tell us that for this operation you need to have some controls. That means your statement of applicability, and you need to implement those. Those are comes under the procedure. Procedure help us to identify how a system admin will implement those things into our infrastructure. That means if our standard is saying we should have a password encryption policy or password hardening policy of 10 character minimum, procedure will define us how those will be implemented. Also, if the standard saying that we should have a MFA, multi-factor authentication, procedure will show us, define that how we are going to implement MFA. Okay, guidelines are the best practice for recommendations. Those are like the book you generally get during your joining day. The company will give you some guidelines. Okay, you need to follow this, you need to follow this. Those are the guideline things. Baseline means baseline requirement, basic, that means minimum standard requirement for your organization. I don't know, have you heard about the infrastructure as code, or maybe the policy as a code? Okay, so how these things happen? Company create a script file, maybe a playbook with Ansible or something. So they have written all those things, and whenever they need to provision a computer, they just run those script. So that script has certain, yes, that script has certain baseline requirements for the company, and it will deploy and update group policy according to that way. So those are the baseline. Because why they are baseline? Because company research and identified that those version they are using that has no vulnerability, or maybe if they have vulnerability that comes within their risk appetite criteria. So they approve that baseline configuration now. So whenever you are using, you need to minimum have to have a baseline configuration. After that you can hardening your system, but you cannot go beyond the baseline configuration. This is the thing. So this is not only for the infrastructure as a code or policy as a code. Whenever the company is building a system, they should have, okay, their computer needs to have antivirus, the computer should have comes under the group policy, their computer should have the MDM, or maybe they comes under the NAC policy, or some password policy should have. So those are comes under the baseline configuration. Okay. Risk management. Do you have any idea of risk management? So tell me, okay. Very good, very good. Now tell me three things. What is the difference between, and you will get this question in interview also. Tell me the difference between threat, vulnerability, and risk. Okay, it's okay, understand. And risk is threat into vulnerability is risk. Just remember, never forget this. You'll get this in the interview also. So this is the standard risk management procedure. Okay, risk management policy and procedure. So I will explain risks very easily. You don't need to remember many things. So risk has 4 parts. Risk management. Whenever I say management, remember it's a cycle of things. Okay, it's not a single term. Management means it's not one time. We are managing every steps. Just remember. Okay. So this risk management policies comes and start with the risk appetite. Okay, everything has a risk. Okay, I am giving you training here. What is my risk? I could have a risk of internet connectivity. I could have a risk of power. All those are risk here. So company, whenever they are doing business, they also have a risk, right? Risk of what? Maybe supplier risk, maybe employee risk, maybe political, structural, environmental. Environmental means flood, strike, landslide. Those are all risk. So in general, what happened? We categorized risk under this category: political risks, like if the new government comes, if they increase the tax, what will happen? Same thing, economic, financial, that means inflation. Social means any social revolutions happen and they stop taking our products, what will happen? Like they want to they don't want China product, they already want Indian product. Those are the social norms. Technology related failure comes under the technological risk. Legals, compliance, anything, any law changes suddenly or new law implemented, like tax law kind of thing, that is also comes under the legals. Environment, I gave you an example, flood, landslide, those are called environmental. Apart from that, some other risks, people, contractual, those are related with supplier. Okay, so these are all risks for the company. So based on that, company prepare a risk appetite chart. What is risk appetite chart? They segregate their risks and they set category, like average risk, averse risk, minimal risk, cautious risk, open risk, eager risk. They said, okay, if this is from 1 to 4, we don't need to concern. It's an inherent risk. We can handle those, no problem at all. But if it is a cautious, now we need to start action. But if it is a more than 16, this is just an example. Okay, not all companies has the same kind of policy. I made this policy for my company. Okay, for as per our requirement. Remember this. This is not mandatory thing, but this is the general way to understand risk. Eager. So if the company thinks when the risk is more than 16, that means is now going to very high risk. Or can we accept that risk? Now they are started their questioning. So based on that, they made a policy. Okay, we will handle risk up to 16. We are not going to handle risks over 16. Anything comes under after 16, it's very high for risk, very high for us, and we cannot accept this. We need to bypass that. Either we have to implement some treatment or we need to avoid those risks. Those comes under the risk appetite. Sometime you will heard this term risk tolerance. So some risk tolerance and risk appetite overall same, but they have an interim meaning of this, because based on the appetite, company tolerance their level of risk. Now, so this is a policy. They also defined what is the meaning of open cautious. In this statement, the company says that we have a risk appetite and we can handle risk up to cautious or open. We cannot go beyond open. We are not able to handle those. Now, risk management framework start with identification of risk. So now question is, how do you identify risk? So based on the category I show you earlier, the financial, political, those are the category of risk. Now definitely they have a lot of other categories also, which is not mentioned in this policy also, because the risks are endless. Now the thing is, company want to understand what are our risks. We need to identify how we are get to know that this is our risk. We can get this by word of mouth, we can get this by experience, we can get this by risk register, or we can get this by day-to-day activity. That means you are going to perform a technical task today and suddenly what happened, it crashed. Now you understand, okay, this could be a risk for organization. If the application is in production and sometime it crashed, then we could have an unavailability. So this is also risk for the company. This is all about risk identification. So based on the identification, they assess the risk. How they are going to assess the risk. Okay. Now I'll show you how they are going to. So they have two things to assess the risk. One is qualitative method and is quantitative method. So what is quantitative and what is qualitative? The term itself says quantitative means anything in number, quantity. And qualitative means, I said it's a high risk, it's a low risk, it's a qualitative, subjective. Okay. But the thing is, how can I say it's a subjective? Since it is subjective, how can I say it's a high risk or low risk? We should have defined something somewhere, then I will understand it's a high risk, low risk. So this is the chart, risk score matrix. Company said in their policy that this will be insignificant impact, minor impact, moderate impact, major impact, catastrophic impact. And this is all about qualitative, not quantitative. See, company said some disruption of service delivery up to for 24 hours. The service is getting hampered up to 24 hours. If it is comes under that, then it is a minor impact for us. It's defined. IT service is unavailable for up to 8 hours. That means it's a minor for us. But remember, every company has a different methodology to assess this, because the company for this I made this, they have this requirement. But if you compare this with a MasterCard or Visa, can you accept your downtime for 24 hours? It is not possible, because all transactions throughout the world are getting hampered. Can you do this for banking? No, not possible. Even a single second is very important. So every company define their policy, what they call major, what they call minor. So these are all quality. See, some financial implication of 50 million to 50,000 to 1 million. Okay, that is also they consider minimum. Okay, and what they see major means more than 2 data breach financial fines received. That means GDPR financial fines, which constitute of minimum 20,000 20 million euro. That means it considered major. Okay, so these are all defined in the policy, risk management policy. Okay, but remember, qualitative is subjective. There is no number at all to define. Okay, Now we have quantities. This is all about number. Okay, how? Let me show you. Okay, rank details quantitative. Okay, first you need to understand two things. To identify a risk, we find two things. Number one is likelihood and number two is impact. In this chart you can see the likelihood score, and the second chart you will see the impact score. So that also defined descriptor and the frequency. One means very rare, not expected to happen for years. That means in your organization situated in any environment, any continent, and the chances of flood is very rare, and they said the likelihood, okay, it's very rare, give them one. And if the chances of flood is very high, they will give it a certain, give it 5. So that means you have a high risk now. Okay, now this is RAG report. In the RAG report we give the numbers. Based on the numbers we identify, is this risk has an insignificant impact or the catastrophic impact. How we are getting this? Same thing, from the likelihood and from the impact. See, if our impact is 2 here, minor impact, and our likelihood is 5, we will write down this RAG report accordingly, 2 and 5. Based on that, we will understand whether it's a moderate impact for us or major impact for us or catastrophic impact for us. Now we will compare this to our risk appetite chart. I already showed you earlier. Now if the score is below their acceptance level, okay, they can accept this, but it is more than their acceptance level, they cannot accept the risk. This is all about assessing the risk. So in the exam, what you need to remember is identify the risk first. Identify the different company has a different methodology to identify risk. Word of mouth, documents, experience, working experience, day-to-day activity, everything can be possible action for understanding the risk. Okay. Second thing means assessing the risk. You got the risk identified. Now you have a lot of risk you list down. Now you need to assess. You are assessing two things, likelihood and impact, no more than that. Remember in exam also, likelihood and impact. Likelihood means probability, whether it's a certain or not certain or at all not certain. Okay, and impact, if it happens, what are the possible loss your company going to face. Maybe there is a no chance or very less chance of flood. Okay, but if the flood happen, how many dollar, how many millions of dollar, how many millions of rupees you are going to lose. That is impact. So always combine those, then make this RAG report, and the RAG report will say, okay, it's a minimum risk for you, it's a moderate risk for you, or it's a major risk for you. Okay, so for example, the if you have a certain score, if you have a score of 20, that comes under the catastrophic. Now based on this report, based on this risk, 20 is a very high risk for the company, catastrophic event, the company will check, can we handle this catastrophic event? No, we cannot. Now the risk treatment comes into here. So what is the risk treatment? Risk treatment will give you 4 options. And these are the definition of the catastrophic, modern, open, those are the, and I will show you those 4 options here. These are the 4 options. Mitigation, avoidance, transference, acceptance. So if the risk code you are getting from RAG report is below the risk tolerance or appetite or acceptance range of the company is going to accept this risk. Okay. Suppose, for example, you are doing business and you are getting profit of 100 rupees, and you see there is some disruption going to be happen and you will face rupees 10 losses. It's okay to have these losses. Company can accept this. Okay, I am getting 90 rupees profits. I can accept this risk. Okay. But if you are getting losses of 120, can you accept this loss? Never. You will say, okay, I don't want to do this business. Just avoid these things. I don't want to do this business. Let's move from this business. That is called risk avoidance. So now, if I tell you, Russia and Ukraine, they are having a war situation, and I am giving you some money to do a business in Ukraine. Can you do this? Never. Because you say, oh, there's no point, because Russia will throw a bomb and the bomb will come directly to my shop and everything will be destroyed instantly. Why do I take this risk? I'm avoiding the risk, simply. It's a risk treatment plan. Now, if I give you some money and ask you, okay, come to India and next to your home, make a shop. Can you do this? Okay, yes, I can do. It's a very good plan. You can accept this because there's no harm to take the risk, because you know it's your homes is very nearby and you can just get home support from there also. Now, what is transparency? Transparency means you are transferring this risk to any third party. That means insurance provider. You have a car. The car is very high chances of road accident. What you do? You buy insurance. Simple thing. Because you know if there is an accident, because if your car is going to run in a road, there's a high chance of getting accident because of the road drivers, you know. So you have insurance. Insurance will take care of you. That is called you are giving your losses, your responsibility to the other person. You are transferring it. And mitigation. Mitigation means you are applying any control to protect the risk. That means you have a risk of virus in your organization. What you will do? You will install antivirus. Simple thing. You have a risk of that employee will come into your office and they will insert their pen drive. What you will do? You will block the USB ports. So that is mitigation. You are mitigating this risk because this risk are inherent and as per your risk tolerance level. Within your risk, not as per, within your risk tolerance level. Okay. Now you completed 3 steps here. Number 4 step is document everything. Because why we need to document? Because the same document will help us to understand the risk again. Again, I told you it's a management. Management means cycle. Everything comes within the cycle. So this document we will refer again when we are going to identify the risk again. So this is very important. Now the thing is, we have another reason to keep this documented. To understand whether our method of identifying the risk is exact, correct or not. Maybe the way we identify the risk is not correct. Maybe the way we are assessing the risk is not correct now. It was correct earlier, but it's not correct now because of dynamic nature of business, dynamic nature of threat. Now, earlier we have an antivirus solution. That antivirus solution solve everything. But after we move into this digital era, malware, rats, they start implementing one by one. The ransomware botnet. So antivirus cannot protect this from us. So we need anti-malware, we need EDR, we need XDR, we need firewall. So it's a continuous method of evaluation of risk. Risk is not one time, it's continuous effort. And in ISO 27001, we also need to implement risk management in our organization. So again, risk has 4 parts. You identify the risk, you assess the risk. After identification, you assess. After assess, you decide, okay, we need to treat this risk. Let's treat this. How we are going to treat this? We have 4 options. Either accept or avoid or transfer or mitigate. How I'm going to decide which option I need to take? It's the company's risk appetite which will tell me what I need to do. So we need to we need to refer the company's risk management policy. Now, what is risk management policy? It comes under the governance of the company. So earlier we read why governance is important, because we need to control. Now you will say we need to accept this risk, okay, and we need to mitigate this. I will say, okay, no, we are not going to accept this risk. Let's transfer this risk to insurance. So who is correct here? Nobody is correct, because we are going to follow the company's document. Company's document will guide us what to do. That's why governance is so important for any organization. So everything we need to follow from the book. We are no one, just remind this. So, and whenever we are done with everything, we just document whatever we did. So this document, let me refer to this document again. This document contains a form. This form see, this is the risk escalation and responsibility. If it is a high risk, treat, transfer, terminate. It is a moderate risk, only treat this. It's a low risk, tolerate this. That means accept this. So everything is written on the document, risk management document. Okay, this is risk, this is impact score, and this is RAG report, and this is likelihood score. Now I need to show you another thing. This is risk treatment plan, and this is the way I told you: company, transfer, treat, tolerate, terminate, risk. The names are a little bit different, but more or less the concept is same, and different company use different names. So this is the risk document I am referring, recording risk register. Sometimes they call risk register. So the company will tell you what are the things you need to mention in risk register. So this is the attributes you need to mention: risk ID, risk range, business area, risk category, key control, inherent risk owner, risk title. So company will tell you in their documents that what are the things you need to mention. So it is not, you can make this document in a plain sheet of paper also. There is no need to design. Some company has a specific design for the risk register, but important is these fields you are mentioning, those are important. And the most important here is the risk ID and risk owner and the risk date. Risk owner is mandatory thing. You need to keep this record, because everything, every process, every system, they comes with a risk register. Risk register is something just like a book. If you are the author of the book, you have the knowledge what is written on which page. Similarly, risk owner is the one who knows the process, who understand the process, who understand the system. They know what are the risks associated with the product, associated with the system, and whenever we need to ask anything, we are going to ask the risk owner. This is the very simple concept. Okay. Now I will explain you two things here. One is inherent risk. Inherent risk means every product comes with a risk. That means the example I gave you, I'm teaching you here. I also have a risk of power. I also have a risk of internet connectivity. Those are inherent risk. Another thing, residual risk. What is residual risk? Residual risk means after treatment, after risk treatment. Okay. Anything pending risks comes under the residual risk. Okay. Now the thing is how it happened. You treat one of the risk, you insure your car. After insure, that means you are transferring risk to third person. Still, if your car getting accident, you need to pay certain amount of money to the shop, to the repair shop. That is a residual risk. That means after the risk treatment, you also need to take some risk. That is pending risks, residual risk. Now the company again they will assess the risks regarding the residual risks. They start brainstorming how we can eliminate this residual risk, because it's a management. Whenever we are saying management, it's a cycle process, continuous cycle. Now here in this risk management I have written risk treatment. Okay, whenever these documents can be made customized, there is no specific rule for anything. There is no specific things you need to follow. Every company has their own documents, and they made this own document. In this document I have mentioned somewhere that if a existing control can prevent this risk, we don't control this risk treatment. But if our existing system is not able to prevent that risk, we will implement some controls which is not currently in use, and we will say this as a risk treatment. So those are, everything is customized, can be customized here. Okay. Another thing I need to mention is a cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit means you are buying a product, you need to check your required expected feature. Is there anything within their product, and how is the cost? Is there any other product giving you the same feature within this cost? So you are comparing the cost and benefit. That is cost benefit analysis. Okay. We are talking about the controls and countermeasures here. Now we have few things we need to understand from here. Deterrent. What is meaning of deterrent? Any idea? Okay. Deterrent means your organization has a signboard outside your premises. We have a dog inside the premises, beware of the dog. That is deterrent. That means we are discouraging someone to enter into the premises. It's a deterrent. Sometimes it is written, don't touch the doors, it's electric shocks are there. So they are also deterrent. Maybe we don't have electric shock, but we retain something, notice board. Something will discourage the violators to come into doors. Preventive means we want to stop the attackers or any other person outsider to enter into our business. It's a preventive, that we have equipment to prevent them. We have a handcuff, we have a gun, we have a stick, we have a security guard, and we know if they enter into the premises, we will take some measures. That is preventive. And detective means after incident. So preventive also you can say firewall is a preventive measures, because you are preventing an attacker to stop entering into your network. Detective example, they already entered in your systems. How do you know these things? By way of detective logs, SIM, network analyzer. CCTV camera is also detective, because they don't use as a preventive. CCTV camera cannot prevent the attacker, but they can help you to detect them. Who was them? So that is detective. And what is corrective? Corrective means after detection, you implement corrective measures. That means, okay, some of the person, they entered our building by using this fence, they cut this fence down and they entered into our premises. Okay, let's build a big wall here. It's a corrective measure. Sometimes you observe, okay, our firewall got compromised, so we need an application firewall here, because it's a corrective measure you are doing after detection. Compensating means that is a legacy system. You cannot use any direct control here, but you can use more than one control to protect the system. Some old devices, you cannot upgrade the system, you cannot install antivirus, they are not supported, like Windows XP. You cannot implement any new software there. But what you can do, you can implement a firewall before the computer. So whenever anyone is entering into the computer, they should come across with the firewall first, then they can enter into the computer. This is compensative control. That means alternative controls without using the direct control. Directive means they are giving you direction to do some things. So enforce policy based control. That means whenever you are in the staircase, there is a notice board written here, do not use lift in case of fire. It is a directive control. Do not use lift, it's a fire. Okay. And recovery means restore from incident. Recovery means that in backup is a recovery control. If anything happen, you can recover your data from backup. Okay, just see this image. Something look like onion. We eat onion, those onion. So this is called defense in depth. That means if we have a data, we have multiple layer of security to protect the data. The idea is if one layer failure, other layer will protect it. So this is the main concept of defense in depth. Whenever you heard this term defense in depth, remember it's an onion. An onion has multiple layer. To reach the data, we have lots of layer, and idea is if one layer fails, another layer will protect. Supply chain. What is supply chain risk management? Supply chain risk management is whenever we are buying any product as an organization, just like you bought the product Vanta. So before you buying that product Vanta, you definitely research market, what are the other products available, what are the prices available, whether they are giving us the same feature, whether they have the same facilities, whether they have the same support, those kind of things. So those are the risks you generally assess. Based on the decision, based on the assessment, you take the decision, okay, we will go with Vanta. Similarly, in product-based company, what happen if the product is coming from any other vendor, you know the vendor is trustable, but you don't know where the vendor is getting the raw materials. Maybe they are getting the raw materials from the China. They are making a router. They are using the materials like the components, hardware components inside it, and they are from China. But the China is something, they are giving some material which is counterfeit. You don't know these things. But we need to go physically to that company, to the infrastructure, to the factory, and understand from their books of record from where they are getting the materials, how they are paying the salary to their employees, because it is also important, because any employee who is like not having good experience with the company may be an insider threat. They can easily install a counterfeit product within the product, and by any chance if the counterfeit product comes to us, that could lead us to data exposure, data loss. So we need to check everything. So whenever we go to any other company, not only the product we check the supply chain, where they are getting the product. We talk to the people, we talk to the employees, whether they are satisfied, how they are working, their working culture, how they are getting paid, their working condition. We check everything. So that is called supply chain risk management. Also, before adapting the product, we generally give them a questionnaire to ask, we ask, do you have this certification, do you have this license, those kind of thing we generally ask. Definitely some general question we ask, do you have SOC certification, do you have ISO certification, do you have trade license, do you have tax document, all these things we asked. And the idea is we generally ask those questions which is our expectation and need. This is the two terms, expectation and need. Based on that, we prepare a question and we send this questionnaire to the vendor. Vendor fill this and send to us, and after that we decide whether we can onboard this vendor or not. Okay, maximum thing I completed here. And the risks are, I already told you, hardware risk, software risks, service risks. Those are the risks. And this is called SCRM, supply chain risk management, remember. We go on-site visit, we document review, we do third-party review, third-party audit, vendor audit. And SLA means service level agreement. SLA is pretty simple. Whenever we are buying any product, we are getting contract with the vendor that if anything happens, we need to make the system up and running within this time frame. That is called SLA. Simple service level agreement. That's we need to get AMC. We are getting AMC from you, and you need to make sure that you are making it up and running within this time frame. If you fail to do this, you need to pay a sum of fine of this amount. This is a SLA. Okay, we are done up to here. So just give me a moment. Let me stop the recording.